Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Pronago bringing you another Cause Monarchy cast. We've got AUD64 against HitEmUp, and that's going to be a match that let's just say I've been salivating over this one, okay, guys? We have some of our best players, and HitEmUp is playing Terran. His Terran really feels second to none historically. We'll see if it is true even now. We are on a version of the game that was in the pre-testing phase, where we were, testing before we release the final cut, and, well, let's just say we had some balance changes. Oh, wow. Well, anyway, we have HitEmUp versus AUD, and it is going to be a banger because we are in a state where we're testing the new Atreus, testing a couple of other small balance adjustments, and I'm looking forward to seeing how HitEmUp ends up approaching the Atreus Menace. It's already been adjusted since this version of the game, so please direct your balance winding to the recycling bin. But I will tell you that the Atreus, it's fairly strong, and I think it mostly targets Zerg in particular matchups, but people will still find a way to use it versus Terran. I feel like it's a little bit more reliant on the front line versus Terran than it is in other matchups. Vulture, moving up to the top left after laying the mines, might be able to go ahead and dip dodge the early gateway units that AUD has been trying to send, but he doesn't have another unit that he can use to clear this Scribe Scout. So he's holding him at bay with a single set of lobotomy mines. Now maybe seeing if he can tax the attention of AUD with that one Vulture, if the Hierophant will be able to catch it. I think so, especially on the cliff, yeah, getting that weapon range. But the Scribe does not get up the ramp to scout, and this is a Palladium rush here from HitEmUp. He wants to rush the Phalanx, so already maybe looking ahead into a situation where he's going to be going for something a little bit nutty. Double Phalanx on, after those three Vultures that were made in total. It does look like the Hierophant got the kill on the first, and AUD is just going to go ahead and expand behind this. Interestingly enough, I don't know if AUD has played any PvT recently, but people keep telling me that Terran's having a really hard time in the matchup, and if HitEmUp is, quickly figuring out a way to make it so that the cheaper Palladium after Acropolis 4 is rushable on this kind of situation, I mean, this could end up spiking a lot of value for the Terran player. Phalanx also got an HP buff in the post-Acropolis world, just because I felt like they should be a little bit beefier. However, they did get a splash radius increase right before Weekend Wage, or right after Weekend Wage, rather. So that was just yesterday, and this game was played way earlier than that. So we do have Ministry number 3, so he's basically going to rush Palladium not for like an early offensive move. This is to secure the defense, and then he's going to go for a crazy macro game. HitEmUp used to do crazy stuff like this all the time, where he would just make like quad CC, quad Ministry, and then just power on workers, like most of them would be macro worker, just making extra Masons or whatever. He's trying to force the worker meta to return, guys. He's really trying. Also, we are on Genesis Y, a map by BiddyB. This is a modified version of the most recent rework that kind of undoes some of the changes. Most notably this little area here where there was a gap between the wall that led out into this platform. I felt like it sort of trivialized the other pathways. And so, also, people seem to play the older version of Genesis Y more than the newer version, even though I think the newer version does have some genuine improvements. So that's all right. We'll figure it out over time. But we're testing all these new and old maps that are new again for whatever reason. Looks like AU just sweeping for any mines that have been placed on various locations. Might be checking for hidden expansions or proxies. Either way, though, he's not going to find anything. But it is a nice, clean sweep of the map, so that looks pretty good. And it looks like he wants to go for a cheeky third base. Dude, is he trying to out-macro HitEmUp? Is that really what he's going to go for? That seems a little, well, let's just say audacious, and I like it. Not harvesting from the ridge at all. I think his gateway placement actually makes it so that it would be an awkward return path, too. But Legionnaire watching for drops. The Watchdog has been lifted off and is now in transit to go ahead and take care of business there. Okay, so I'm wondering if the stockade is just for the wall or if he's actually going to use it, because HitEmUp doesn't typically make bio, but if maybe he's been convinced by the cleric train, going for clerics is pretty good. I don't know, something to think about. Filtering in a couple more Vultures at this stage of the game is always nice for extra mines, but not very many players are doing that. And yeah, that third Ministry is indeed just making more workers. So up to almost a 10-worker lead. Atreus is going to take out the Watchdog, another Grand Library added in the natural. Of course, he got the Scout off in the main base and a little bit of the natural, but he has no idea about the third. And that is interesting. So it's not as flashy as obviously going in for a quick early rush and, you know, all the explosions and conflagrations that occur as a result of, you know, really forcing the issue. But, oh, tier 2. Okay, HitEmUp going for an Atlas very early on. I mean, I don't know. There's something about this setup that feels to me like what HitEmUp is doing here and what Aoud is doing by going for the triple expand as well, or the, I guess you could say the third base, fast third base. I mean, it feels to me like the same kind of like nerves that I get, or the same kind of you know, hair on end, you know, like, oh, anticipation is coming up in that context too. Like, what is going on here? What is the play? What is the plan? We got artisans coming out to distance mine, remote mining, where they warp back the resources. So very, very effective unit there. I'm just sitting here wondering, guys. I'm sitting here wondering, what could we possibly be doing in this situation? Because I don't know what Aoud's endgame is. It probably won't really factor in the new Atreus at all. This is not going to be like a, oh, let's check out the new Atreus situation. But we got captaincies coming up. Is HitEmUp going to be going for Reclaimers? Or is he just going to be going for the higher tier bio in general? You know, Madcaps and Olympians maybe later on. But this tier 2 rush is definitely going to catch... oh, you know what it is? HitEmUp is a Striga Siren fan. You know, him, Ramen, Dog, and Aoud were all the Terran homies back in the day. In the Acropolis 3 meta, they were all going for that kind of thing. Striga Siren. 6 captaincies, dude. He's really throwing down the gauntlet here. Like, I powered on workers. I've got oversaturation in my main. I've got a slight oversaturation in my natural. Now, I'm good to go. Let's do it. Capping the Ridge with the Sieve. He can also go to Reservoir Tech now and cap the Geyser too if he wants. And it will be Apostles straight away, so that's a pretty heavy gas expenditure there. And he's going to see if he can create like some kind of ball. I mean, the main concern I have is he doesn't actually have an army that's, this sounds a little harsh to say for these units, but worth multiplying, worth reanimating. That doesn't feel like a force multiplier is going to be very much, right? So, I mean, a multiplier can be really, really powerful if it's a big multiplier, but if it's on something that's a really low base number, it's just not going to have as much efficacy. So, I think that we're just going to be waiting for these, you know, Madcaps, I guess, in this particular case, but any sort of unit that can be multiplied to do it. And there's the Tinkerer's Tower for the Striga and the Siren. So he caps the Ridge in his main base, but he doesn't harvest from it. Aoud, you confuse me. That's probably just a macro thing, right? Paying attention to the vultures as they navigate the map here. Trying to go after the Charlatan is a smart move, but unfortunately they won't be successful in that. A lot of idle workers here in the top left that Aoud is going to have to reckon with at some point, and HitEmUp just hitting the buttons. He's actually not training workers now. It looks like he's switched off the spot. He's going to lift his third ministry to try to go for a third base here, and we'll have to see what happens there. Grand Library number 3 at the natural only. Dude, he's got 8 Grand Libraries now and 1 Rogue Gallery. I guess he really wants to just make only Atreus. This doesn't really feel like it's going to work out very well. So the ministry does land. This has always been a problem spot for Terran, is how do they actually clear and hold this situation in the early stages of the game. But the Phalanxes and the Madcaps are going to be more than sufficient to kind of push them away. And I won't lie, I'm getting a little nostalgic seeing this map and this setup and like the leapfrogging Terran, but with all of our new models for like the Madcap and stuff, that's pretty sick. That's pretty sick. Eventually we'll have like Siren and Striga done and all that stuff. But we're almost done with tier 1 actually. I think it's the Trojan and the Valkyrie are the ones that are left, and so we got those updated by Balathal recently, and so we're just going to keep on updating them over time. But very cool. Cestus Landing gives detection for a moment, so that Witness does not get pulled in by a Siren, thankfully, for Aoud. Wouldn't be surprised if HitEmUp decides to go for Eidolons, but I guess at this point he's at tier 2, right? So he probably doesn't need to. Eidolons probably do smoke the Atreus if they can keep a distance. And they did get a new model from Solstice recently, so come on now. It wasn't an intentional aspect of the post-Acropolis patch, but we are going to add so many new models once that actually kicks in. So if you're a release gamer, you are going to get a lot of new eye candy, that's for sure. All right, initial sortie there. The 4th base is up and running for Aoud, so keeping up in that department. Artisan's also harvesting a little bit of extra Vespine. But he's really focused on the Grand Libraries. I think he might have maybe been being a little funny about it, you know what I mean? Like, there's not really a reason to stick so many on. I mean, I don't mind it in theory. You make a lot of Amaranths and stuff. He's making an Ocean of Atreus. I just don't think that they're going to be able to do that much damage to the Terran Bioball comparatively. But maybe I'll be proven wrong. Apostles up to the northern side, stealing a couple of those Legionnaires. Some of the Atreus now serving a new master, but, well, we only have a small bit of front line here for HitEmUp. He actually does not have most of the Strigas or really hardly anything going on here. And so his Phalanxes weren't even in with that army, right? They were all back defensively. That is a bit of a, not necessarily a calamity, but it does take the teeth out of HitEmUp's push, and he is going to have to turtle back up and play a little bit more defensive. He didn't bring his artillery, and that definitely made the trade more obviously in favor of Aoud. But maybe it would have still gone his way either way, and at least now in this case, HitEmUp reserves some of his artillery there. Making more Apostles, Madcaps to replace the ones that he lost. Has a bunch of Striga, but no Sirens. After that big fight that he lost everything in. And now we got Architects coming in with Quad Unitary Union, a 5th base coming for Aoud. So this does feel like the Protoss is in a significantly better economic position, as well as teching up a little bit faster here, which is more par for the course. Reservoir is capping every single geyser at once. So for a little bit, he's going to be gas-starved. Still ends up affording a couple of those Striga, or Sirens, and he will go ahead and float a Ministry over to the 4 o'clock base, which currently isn't being occupied by Aoud despite his map control, so that's a little bit of a miss. Ooh, going up to, I think he's basically, let's see, 1... Yeah, he's effectively on like 7 gas right now, as soon as this base actually gets mining, I guess. So 6 gas because of the Artisans. That's a fairly heavy bonus there. Maybe we'll say 6.5 because he's got the geyser but no ridge mining, right? There's another one there that could be used though. So he's not making like a ridiculous number of artisans, right? It's just 1 embassy throughput, so occasionally he's got to deal with the fact that he's got to make a witness, or you know, maybe just doesn't feel like making more artisans. He needs more military units. More captaincies being added though, and yes, base number 4 is going to have to be lifted here. This is going to allow HitEmUp to move out a little bit. But remember, he's still got to be conscious of Aoud counter-pushing. This is not his whole army. There's only a dozen units counting the Witness, and that Witness is going to be decloaked pretty quickly. Unfortunately, though, the attack comes in at the same time, and yeah, this is what I was saying. Aoud can get right on top of the Phalanx. There's a couple of lobotomy mines from earlier on. Might make it so that these Atreuses go down a little bit sooner than he would have liked. Stealing some of the Atreuses with those Apostles, that's actually a big number, too, and yeah, you can easily get punished for sending your prized mid-range units into the enemy's face when they're going for this kind of tech. Now, a Vagrant was left behind to watch over the base. That's going to be annoying. HitEmUp can't just expand for free there. He's going to try to give chase and even use some of his Atreuses that he's stolen to good effect. But the Architects are now starting to, you know, rally in. This could be a bad catch for Aoud, though. If he gets engaged upon, and he isn't able to just right-click those Apostles. Some of his Atreus is not actually fighting for a little bit here. That's a little rough. Yeah, I don't know if he's actually going to break through all those Apostles in the back. They're slowly draining energy. So there is that, and he's got so many Architects, dude. But he doesn't have any frontline left. And that's where I think the big problem is going to be, because the Sirens are still pulling him in. Yeah, that's the break right there. And I don't know if Aoud has enough. I mean, he's got 4.5k in the bank. You know, he didn't scale his production up after taking all these bases, but definitely needs to try to rally here. And he's not right-clicking the right targets exactly here. Yeah, the Apostle count is still pretty high. I think the Reclaimers are indeed not bad. I think they're pretty good. And I think HitEmUp's now going to go ahead and use that combo of the Siren to pull the corpse towards him to seal his fate. There it is, GG. Aoud had such an economic advantage, and he just didn't spend the money. But then also engaged really aggressively towards the Phalanx line with all of his Atreuses. Forget about the 5 or so that HitEmUp stole at that point. That wasn't really a huge factor. It was, the biggest factor was Aoud didn't have anything to buy time for his Architects. That would have smoked the competition. That would have annihilated HitEmUp's composition if they could get, you know, 3 or 4 more rotations off on their weaponry. But it was not to be, and Reclaimers claim another soul. GG's. We will be back with more Cosmonarchy tomorrow.